because the biggest lesson on that road was that your network is absolutely your net worth.
Welcome to the 5 Questions Podcast, where we unlock real estate and business insights one question at a time.
I'm Sam Castillo, and this is Sam Castillo and Associates.
Let's go! From home and auto to commercial and nonprofit insurance, Samuel Castillo and Associates takes the time to understand your needs and finds coverage that fits your life and your budget. We're here to protect what matters most: your home, your business, and your family. With life insurance, disability, and critical illness coverage and investment options, we help you plan today for a stronger tomorrow. When life happens, make sure you're protected with Samuel Castillo and Associates. Call us today at 905-978-1721 or email at the address below and experience the peace of mind you deserve.
Welcome to the 5 Questions Podcast. I am your host, Mario Lamarre. Our guest on today's show is a New York Times best-selling author, a global entrepreneur, and founder of multiple successful companies, including 123 Employee, one of the pioneering outsourcing firms for entrepreneurs worldwide. From designing fashion for music acts at 15 years old to producing major events, building global businesses, and now leading investor communities in Puerto Rico. His journey is all about leverage, reinvention, and building businesses that creates freedom instead of burnout. Welcome, Daven Michaels. Daven, welcome to the
Mario,
5 Questions Podcast.
thanks, buddy. Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it.
Daven, the concept of the podcast, real simple. 5 questions about real estate or business. In this
Cool.
case, mostly business with you. And
Yeah.
we get straight to the point. You ready?
Yeah, sounds great. Let's do it.
You started your I can never say that word, entrepreneurial journey at 15 years old.
I did.
Looking back now, what mindset separated you from the average person who never takes action?
Yeah, I'm gonna say stupidity. No, honestly, a lot of it was just seriously lack of experience, lack of knowledge, lack of knowing that it wasn't possible. So therefore, it was possible, right? I was an only child. I graduated high school a couple years early, like around 16, not because I was particularly bright, but because I was particularly driven. I
Yeah.
just I didn't like high school and I wanted to start a business. I felt that I could do it. I felt that it was in my blood, and I didn't have anyone around to tell me I couldn't do it. It was just my parents, and they were wonderful people. They didn't, because I was an only child, they didn't have like a guidebook, and so they were my biggest supporters, and they just really encouraged me to do it and go for it. And I did. And I honestly, I went to the School of Hard Knocks. I ended up going to college for a little while. Then I dropped out because my business took off. I always say if I had to do over again, I probably would have got better grades, went to a better school, and really tapped into that network. Because the biggest lesson on that road was that your network is absolutely your net worth.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time. I had no network at the beginning. I had no education, I had no resources, I had no money, and I had no network. And it took me a long time to build that network. Now, a lot of people go to good schools and they still don't tap into the network. So it's always that woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it was just honestly, it was a lack of knowledge and a lot of motivation.
And you see, you keep saying, and not you keep saying, I heard you say now, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
And many other people that are successful keep saying that phrase. And a lot of people hear it, and some might even be annoyed by it now.
Yeah.
Why do we keep saying this? Because it
Yeah.
is so important.
It is. It is. And I knew it for a long time. I mean, like you said, everybody talks about it, but just because you hear something doesn't really mean that you adopt it or you accept it on sort of a visceral level. And I always said, because I'm a marketer, and so for decades, I've always said the lifeblood of all business is marketing. If you have a ton of business coming through, if you have a ton of leads coming through your door, if you have a ton of business coming in, if your bank accounts are overflowing with money, you can probably buy yourself out of just about any challenge that you end up facing in your business, right? But I've actually redefined that over the last few years as I switched, as I kind of had my last exit. And now it's really the Daven brand that kind of sells so many different things. I've really come to realize that the true value of a good business person is their network. If you have a strong network, you can accomplish anything. You can raise, hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. You can do big things, make things happen. It's all about your network, and business is 100% about relationships.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. That's what I preach as well. Brings us to our second question.
Yeah.
You were involved in music. I mean, both of us, like I said in private to you, we met for a reason. I have a
A lot of
tattoo.
parallel universes.
Music's my
Yeah.
painkiller on my arm, right?
It's nice.
So you were involved in music, television, fashion, events, outsourcing, publishing. Most people struggle to succeed in one industry.
Right.
What allowed you to reinvent yourself over and over again successfully?
That's a really good question. And I don't know. I mean, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. But I can certainly tell you, how it all kind of happened because it's kind of interesting. So most of my businesses have been in entertainment or communications or some sort of hybrid of the two. And so what happened was I started my clothing company. It was in the early 80s. I was very young. I had very little. And I was designing clothing for music groups. My groups had nothing going on, but an incredible thing happened. MTV came on the air, changed the face of music, changed my life. And so I was designing clothing for these bands that had nothing going on. Within about 90 days, most of my bands had record deals. Within a year, they were selling millions of albums, and I rode that wave. And I was working with these bands, and I toured with them. So we would get, our biggest bands would get like 500 or 600 people to a concert, and then that went from 500 to 2,500, 5,000, 25,000, 50,000 stadiums. And this was all in the course of a year. And that was extraordinary. So
Wow.
kind of rode that wave, sold that company. Then I got into a business that was on the telecommunications side. And not a glamorous business. We bootstrapped it, but 5 years later, we're in 60 cities across the US. I sold to a public company and took back stock in that company. So that moment in time when that company got bad, it kind of changed my life. And then I wanted to be, well, so then I became the biggest EDM event producer in the US. I would throw parties for like 20,000 people a night, and I wanted to be a rock star. And because of that built-in fan base, I could literally throw a concert and have like 20,000 people show up. I was able to get distribution. I was a recording artist. I toured. I did a couple of albums. And then people started to ask me to write and produce. And I started doing that thinking I'd go back to being an artist. But I had a record label, and my partner Layla discovered Tupac. And so that plummeted me into the hip hop world. And so I had a great run there. And honestly, I'd still be in that business today, but Napster came out. 50 million people were downloading free music, and I thought it was the end of the music business. So I bounced, I moved on to television right at the beginning of reality TV. Never really had major success in television, just because I was only there for a few years. So nothing really happened there, nothing major. But I did learn how to produce television, which was cool. I've
Yeah.
used those skills for the rest of my life. And then I had a music publishing deal with a friend. It was my friend's deal, but I was helping him, and that was for Southeast Asia. So that put me on that side of the world. And I started a little like phone room for one of my businesses with like 10 employees. It was in the Philippines. The infrastructure was not there yet. Nothing worked right. But after a while, we built it out to about 30 employees. And then one day I was like, maybe we could offer this as a service. And so we tried and failed and tried and failed a couple times, and then we finally got some momentum, and that was 1, 2, 3 employee, which over time it was not a rapid growth company, but over 15 years became a massive company with over 1,000 employees, and today they have 6,000 globally, which is pretty neat. And I'm still on the board of that company. So that's kind of that was not exactly the answer to your question, but that's kind of what happened along the road. It was pretty interesting. So.
Well, I mean, I guess the question was what allowed you to reinvent yourself? And life life itself
Life.
allows
Well,
you to
exactly. And I
reinvent.
kind of I prefaced it with kind of necessity is the mother of invention, right? Like
Exactly.
life kind of came at me and I rolled with the punches.
And this is where the big difference of people who always stay
Sure.
in the same place, and they're unhappy in their place. Well, when
Yeah.
situation change or when life change, if you learn to adapt with what life throws at you,
Yeah.
you reinvent yourself, you move on, and you create.
I agree. I agree. And look, things are moving so quickly that you've got to be pivoting all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
we're just going to be pivoting more and more because every day something comes out that's incredible, and then AI can do it 2 days later. So it's just, it's the most disruptive time in history, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
yeah,
All right, Davin, question number 3 for you. You became known as one of the pioneer of outsourcing for entrepreneurs. We're talking about one, two, three employees.
yeah.
What are business owners still doing today that they absolutely should not be doing themselves anymore?
Well, I just have to say, this is like a really, really interesting time because, I say 1, 2, 3 employees has 6,000 employees today on their way to six. Okay. Because I mean, you're not going to outsource to humans anymore. You're going to outsource to compute,
Yeah.
right? So and what's interesting too is, we were always 3 to 5 years ahead of the curve technology-wise. I don't think that's going to be a possibility anymore to be that far ahead of the curve. The world has completely flattened. Everybody has access to the same information, the same compute, the same resources, right? For very little money. So now, I mean, I think it's just all about it's totally changed. It used to be like I used to advise people, to identify the IGAs in your business, the income generating activities. Those are the things to tackle first because when you outsource, it's still a liability. Even though you're going to outsource for less, it's still a liability on your balance sheet. So focus on the things that generate revenue for you. And then focus on all the minutia, all the busy stuff in your business so you can get that off of your plate because your time is money. That's contradictory to what most people advise. Most people are always saying, get rid of the minutia. But I say get rid of the money-making activities first, and outsource those. But that's all changed as of now. We are
Yeah.
now in this agentic AI age. So honestly, I wouldn't even encourage anybody to like look at really outsourcing right now. I would look at learning everything you can about agentic AI. And then as you do that, you will be like, wait a minute, it could do that for me. It could do that for me. It could do that for me. And then at the end of the day, if you have something left the human can do, well, sure, outsource it to someone overseas.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more because we're right there at the beginning of a curve that has never happened before.
That's right.
And right now we're just learning. Even entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs such as yourself, has to relearn right now the
100%.
direction for the next 10, 20 years, right?
Absolutely. And I'm in it. I mean, I'm working with the agentic AI, building all this stuff. And this is how crazy it is. Like my biggest project that I'm working on right now, 4 weeks ago, the technology was not there when I kind of started thinking about it. And now it is. That's how fast it's moving.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
I just quickly before we go to our next question, I'm not a coder for any means, computer
But
wise. I
but you
I
don't
can
have to
I
be
can get
anymore.
around, and but I'm not a coder. I've been creating a portal, a customer portal, in a matter of weeks
I
that
know.
would have probably taken months before for professionals. It's
100%.
unbelievable.
I'm in the same situation. So I spend, I have a magazine, so I spend 10,000 a month on the production of that magazine. I spent the last few weeks building a whole like brain center, dashboard center, software, the whole thing that's going to run it all. It's extraordinary. And like I said, 4 weeks ago, it wasn't even possible to do it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
crazy.
crazy.
I'm doing the same thing, man. It's very cool, right? Very empowering. Hurts your brain a little bit, but pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
Really
it's
cool stuff.
exciting.
And by the way, now I'm training my daughter how to do it too, and she's going to come into the business, so it's pretty exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Let's move on to question number 4. You talk a lot about leverage and freedom. What's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make that keeps them trapped, working harder instead of scaling smarter? We now we're talking about AI, but what else?
AI, man. It's all about the AI. But it's definitely all about creating systems and processes and then plugging people or machinery into those processes. That's really the key. And what's great is so many entrepreneurs are visionaries. They are not process oriented. And so so until a few months ago, you had some options, right? You could hire somebody to create those processes for you. You could bring on a partner that has that competency,
Yeah,
or you can have employees that have that competency. And I've done all of the above. But now it's all out the door
yeah.
because you can absolutely have AI create all of these processes for you and then create the machines to run them. It's just, I mean, it's extraordinary. Like if we had this interview, 90 days ago, it would be a very different interview than it is today. But it's crazy.
And that goes to show, and entrepreneurs out there who are listening to this right now, have to take this wisdom or this thing that we're talking about, that you need to act fast. Now in business, if you want to be successful and be ahead of the curve from your competitors, you need to pivot fast.
Yeah.
Don't sit and be comfortable because someone's gonna outrace you.
Yeah. No, 100%, 100%. Yeah. It's an extraordinary time. And make as much money as you can right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Last question for today, Davin. You've built businesses, communities,
Yeah.
events, relationships around the world. In today's economy, how important is networking and proximity compared to just having skills alone?
Yeah, it's really everything. So several years ago, for you kind of explained a little bit about me, self-employed for 3 decades, New York Times bestselling author, 10 books. Because of that, I have a pretty big global following. But as you know, I live in Puerto Rico and moved to Puerto Rico nearly a decade ago. And just for fun, I started a little community to bring us expats together with the locals for food, conversation, and networking. Today, we have over 6,000 incredible founders and investors in the San Juan Social Club. And so I do an event once a month as a public service to bring everyone together. And I've really brought together that network. And it's super fun, but it's become incredibly valuable. We've generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for charity, done over 100 million in deals for all of our people. It's become so powerful. And I remember when I was kind of, just sort of thinking about this, I went to a dear friend of mine and one of my best friends, and he runs our dev team in India. And yeah, I kind of told him what we're doing, this, that, and I was like, should I do this? And he said, you absolutely have to. I said, why do I have to? He said, because today we live in the age of influence or community or whatever you want to call it. And anytime you have that inflection point when you can create a community around something, you have to take advantage of it because it's what everybody wants. It's where all the gold is. And he was right. He was right. So yeah, today it's all about, creating community because it's so incredibly powerful what you could do with that.
And I would even push it further, if you allow me, creating communities that people feel safe in
Yeah.
and that people feel valued in, and not just a giant pool of people who they all
Yeah.
get lost, right?
Yeah.
And
I think
that's
it's
the
a really good point.
difference. That's
Yeah.
the difference of great communities and
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Yeah. If you can spotlight everyone in that community, make them feel special, yeah, it goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Davin, thank you so much. Lots of insights, lots of tricks and tips from
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
entrepreneur that's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you for the time you've been spending with us on the Five Questions podcast, and we'll talk soon again.
Thanks, amigo. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Five Questions podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell on our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Stay tuned for more insights and tips to transform your real estate and business game. See you next time.